Promoting positive practices. Today we're going to be going over accessing credible resources and materials. So in the chat box, if you can, put something that you are most interested in learning about for today's session, or when you hear the word resource, what words or thoughts come to mind for you? So go ahead and answer one of those two questions in the chat box. Either what are you most interested in learning about, or what comes to mind when you hear the word resource?
Wow, send a message.
Hi, Miss Susanna. Happy you could jump on with us today. Give us just a minute to let those responses come through. All right, I'm going to keep watching the chat box for some thoughts that you guys have for today's session. Ms. Natasha said new sites to get activities from and class ideas. Okay, awesome. So with today's session, we are, like I said, doing accessing credible resources and materials. Let's just do a quick feelings check-in. So off this graph or off this chart, how are you feeling today? Are you feeling tired, happy, excited, hungry, curious, calm, frustrated, sad, or silly? Go ahead and put your number in the chat box too. So I think today I would probably have to be a mixture of 1 and 2. Definitely feeling a little tired, but happy to be here with you guys. Got a couple tireds in the chat box. 1 and 2 for Miss Susanna. Fabulous. We should all take a nap at the same time kids take a nap. I think that should be like a mandatory preschool teacher thing.
I agree.
Hungry, yes, hungry for sure. I have not had my lunch yet, so I'm also very hungry. Miss Marlene feeling curious. Fabulous. All right, with that, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Just a couple of housekeeping items real quick. Just remember, if you have a red line through your microphone button, that means you're muted and we cannot hear you. Without that red line, it means you are unmuted and we can hear you. If for whatever reason you have an issue with you can't hear us or we can't hear you, you might have to change either your microphone or your speaker settings, and you can do that with the little caret button next to your microphone. Very similar things for video. Red line through your video means we cannot see you. Without your red line, that means we can see you. And I do see some wonderful faces today. Hello, Miss Terusa. Hello, Miss Natasha. Hello, Miss Susanna. All good. Happy to see you all. Gorgeous faces. All right. I encourage you to use our chat function. That's going to be your little bubble at your bar where you mute and unmute yourself. Your chat box will be down there. Most of you have already found it so far. So feel free to engage with us that way if you don't feel comfortable verbally stating your questions or thoughts or concerns. That's another way that you can communicate what you need from this process. When you click the chat button, a little box will pop up and you'll be able to type your message there. All right, so for today, we are going to look at what is a resource, what is a material, and how do we make sure that we're providing credible information to our teachers, our families, our children, those kinds of things. And we'll also be able to have a break. Well, we won't do a breakout room. We'll do a big group session today where we talk about the importance and benefits of creating those connections with the credible resources that we provide for our staff and our families at our programs. We'll look at some credible resources. I have a great document to share with you guys today with some links to some great websites that we here at ELC have looked through, we've vetted them. We know that they work. We know that they have good resources. So I'll show you how to explore those. And then we'll come up with a plan on next steps of which one of those resources are we going to use in the near future and how are we going to use it? So we here at the Early Learning Coalition have a set of teaching practices called the Early Learning Teaching Practices. These are a set of practices we've developed with the University of Florida Anita Zucker Center, and we know that they're evidence-based, which means that when they're done as intended, these are going to promote those positive outcomes for children. So teaching practices really are simply what the teacher says or does in the classroom. Resources and materials relate to the context of these everyday interactions and instructions. So how we implement that learning within the classroom. The resources that we're going to explore and discuss can be used individually for infants and toddlers as well as preschoolers. And these resources are also going to assist in building those positive relationships with your families and fellow coworkers through sharing and what is learned with one another. So for example, a teacher might share a resource about biting with a child's family, and this is going to help create that home-school connection. Or we might have a teacher who shares a resource on creating a visual schedule with a co-teacher who's trying to establish that routine in the classroom. So there's different ways that we're going to be able to use these resources that we look through today. How many of you are familiar with CLASS? Thumbs up, thumbs down, yes or no?
Oh, yeah.
I see a head shake. All right, so CLASS is really our program assessment tool that is used in order to rank teacher-child interactions within a classroom. So when we talk about CLASS being used, especially when we talk about resources, incredible resources in the classroom, this is going to look at how we identify teacher-child interactions. And these resources are going to help with classroom organization, behavior support, and responsive caregiving, and can really enhance those CLASS scores. So when we talk about infants, you might want to best facilitate their exploration. And with toddlers, you might want more information on behavior guidance for a child who's biting, or how to increase your engagement and instructional opportunities during circle time for preschoolers. So access to the right resources can be helpful for teachers and beneficial to young children when used in a way that they're intended. Before we jump into the content, does anybody have any initial questions or concerns about resources? All right, I don't see anything in the chat box. I don't see anybody chatting at me. So we'll go ahead and start with defining information about resources. So we're going to talk about, what are resources, what platforms you use to access resources, whether that's books, the internet, your co-teachers, your supervisors, parents. Those are all great sources of information. So there are many ways to access resources. It really is going to depend on your preference and how you feel you learn best, right? Some of us learn through hands-on touch. Some of us learn better as visuals, so we might watch videos. So think about the way that you learn. Think about the way that you can best support your families in your classrooms as we go through today's session on what materials there are that are available to you. So we're going to define resource as something that a teacher can use to gain better understanding of a practice or a topic. So this might be something you can read or a video that you watch to learn a little bit more about a specific topic. This can also include articles about teaching children emotions or like a video on how to label children's emotions. Those would be two examples of types of resources. Now, when we talk about materials are going to be objects that can be manipulated to carry out a specific practice. So this is something that you can hold. An example of a material would be a sand timer to help assist in keeping circle time under 20 minutes, which would support creating and maintaining a supportive environment. Or it might be a visual for a daily schedule or our potty routine. Another example of a material would be a social story or a book on how to be friends, and that's going to help promote those social skills. So not only are resources important, but credible materials are really important in our classroom too. So we know that when we use credible resources and materials as intended, we know from research and from the pyramid model innovations in Head Start and Early Childhood Learning and Knowledge Center, or ECLIC, there are a few characteristics that make resources and materials credible. So first off, we want to make sure that the sources we explore for resources are sources that can be trusted. So that is what's going to make our materials and resources research-based. So data and proof that shows that they are effective. So then that's going to bring us to our second characteristic of credible resources. We want to think through, when we're searching for things, websites that are registered by the government and educational institutes. So look for websites that end in .gov, .edu, or .org. And finally, we want to make sure that we gather information from a resource that's recent. And so we want to try and aim for within the last 10 years. Finding information from 1988 is great. We can see how much time has changed things over here. But as with everything, the field of education, there's lots of new research that always comes out. So we want to try and find things that are published within the last 10 years. Is there anything else that anybody wants to add on what makes our credible resource here? Okay, so we'll talk about the positive outcomes for children and teachers. And when we have access to various credible resources and materials, for starters, resources and materials are going to be key in assisting teachers in enhancing and implementing practices to promote positive development for children. So we're going to look through, knowing how to access resources and materials, but have positive outcomes for children as they may lower behavior problems, which in turn is a plus for us as teachers. We also are going to see when teachers access credible websites to collect resources and materials, they are provided with up-to-date information on best practices. And then finally, a great benefit is that you have everything you need at your fingertips. So you can print those labels for your visuals, you can print those social stories, you can print off things for posters. Materials are ready and available for you to go. So we would normally do a breakout room here, but what I'd like to do is just have a brief open discussion with the group. And you can either unmute yourself and share or drop something in the chat box. But what are some current challenges and successes that you have in your classroom with either accessing resources and materials or sharing credible resources and materials with either your coworkers or your families?
I'll say with the family, because sometimes when I give parents some resource, seem like they're not interested. Because I turn around and ask them about it, have they read it? They say no, it's in the car or something like that. And kind of make me frustrated. Right.
You have that whole, like that old adage, you can lead a horse to water kind of thing.
Right.
I agree. Also, that's how it is. It's like they want us to pretty much do everything for them. Get the resources, call the resources, and pretty much do everything and then hand it to them.
Yeah. Okay, so we're having trouble with getting families to engage with the resources that we're giving them, whether that's reading it or learning about something new. It sounds like that is a big challenge.
And also like for me, that's just like that resource I just ordered with this grant. And it's not cheap. It's mostly like a video resource that I can share with the parent.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping and praying that they will get on and look at it and interact with their kids. Because it's like I say, it's not cheap. And
Yeah.
I guess I would like some kind of way to, I guess, maybe I have a parent meeting or talk with the parent individual and let them know, hey, I got this nice resource that will help. You know, you can do things with your kids at, call it Ready Rosie. And it's not cheap. So, you know, you can do things, you know, look at this video and kind of do activities with your kids at home, with your child at home.
Right.
So that's what I'm looking at, you know, this year when August start.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a parent meeting for that kind of thing would definitely be a great way to introduce it to them. You know, also say something along the lines of like, I invested my own money into this program because I believe in it, but I want to offer it to you for free because I know how much it can help you with supporting your children at home.
Okay.
That would be my thought on, you know, but I think a parent meeting would be great to roll that out with your families.
Okay.
Natasha's got to consistently remind parents of the same thing before they actually look at anything. Yeah. So then let's shift into our next question. What is a resource that you like to go back to time after time after time, whether it's Teachstone, YouTube? What's some of your favorite resources that you currently use?
I use a lot of YouTube.
Okay.
Along with ELC as well.
We've got a couple resources up our sleeves.
I use YouTube and even though I'm not in the classroom, but Pinterest is another one.
Mm-hmm. Pinterest has a lot of things for teachers, especially ideas for games and art projects.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anybody else have one that they like? Okay. So I know that, you know, with sharing information with parents, I mean, it's a challenge for a couple of different reasons. And one of the ways that we do want to make sure we're paying attention to how we deliver that content, because there might be certain barriers for people to actually sit down and read it. So whether you're sharing it with a coworker or a family member or you know, whoever you might be sharing this information with, sometimes, especially if you have a larger group of people, promoting positive practices resources. Woo, we got a shout out. Thanks, Ms. Sharon. We want to make sure that we provide it in multiple ways. So that might be, you might print it off and have a hard copy to hand out to them, you know, that way they can take it home with them. Or you might send it in as an attachment in an email. I've also seen where some providers will record the information, like they video record themselves and then send it out as like a YouTube link or a video recording for the family to watch. So those are some things that you might want to think through. And how do we get this information to our parents? Are we making it equitable so that everybody, no matter how they learn or no matter how they have access to things, that they're able to get that information? Now, even if you did all three of those, you're still going to have parents who aren't going to do it. And that's just the reality of it all. But, you know, we can make sure that we're providing it in multiple ways and multiple avenues to make sure we're getting the most families that are affected by that resource. All right. So sounds like a good discussion. We'll go ahead and we're going to move through. We didn't do a breakout room, so I'm skipping through this part. We're going to look at some resources and materials. We're going to explore some sources that I have for you guys for today. Let me pull this up. There's going to be a couple of them. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to look at them together. First one first. This is the University of Florida Anita Zucker Center page. This particular part of their page, A to Z's of Early Childhood, is a phenomenal resource. They've got each letter has something tied to it. For one of my favorites here, B for behavior. They've got some great resources about addressing challenging behavior. F for family professional partnerships. That might be one to look at if you're having trouble connecting with your families. Growth and development, making sure that you know what kind of growth mile markers your students are supposed to be at. Inclusion, language, newborns, practice-based coaching, reading. It has a ton of great information and resources here. So that's going to be a link that you guys will have and I'll share with you. Our next one is the Early Childhood Learning and Knowledge Center, or eClick. This is the website for the Head Start program, but they have a lot of wonderful resources in here. And so there's webinars, there's videos. You can search for certain resources. We type in behavior. It'll give us a bunch of videos and resources on positive behavior, redirecting behaviors. There's quite a few videos in here. Almost all of the videos on the eClick website are less than 5 minutes.
Hey, Face.
Hey, Miss Cindy, I'm gonna mute you.
Face.
See you. All right. So with the videos that are on eClick, they're 5 minutes or less, but they've got some great information on a variety of topics. And where did my mouse go? There it is. A lot of times below those videos, there's also going to be different articles that are available to you. They're all in, most of them are in PDF format, so you should be able to easily open those. For example, this one has a learning activity about behaviors. There's some supplemental videos that go with it. There's also what we call in-service suites, and these are just quick 15-minute trainings on this particular topic. So if there's something that you want more information on or more training on, eClick has a lot of great resources for those. All right, our next one that I've got for you for today is from the National Center for Pyramid Model Implementation. So the Early Learning Coalition of Alachua County does participate in the Pyramid Model Project. The Pyramid Model Project is a tiered support structure for children, young children, that looks at social emotional development. And so this is a really, really nice resource. And this one, their resource library is phenomenal. They've got a whole bunch of social stories, but they also have, what I'd like to show you here if it loads, is they have a way to filter it by language. They have a lot of resources translated into various languages: Arabic, Chinese, Korean, Spanish, Turkish, Portuguese. You can also sort it by category or type, whether it's a book or article or video, and you can also filter it by audience, so you can find things specifically for your families. This is just a really nice website and resource for you. All right, our next one is NAEYC. NAEYC is the National Association for Education of Young Children. They are the institute that really values high quality teacher-child interactions. Excuse me. And so their resources are going to be on here as well. And so if you hover over resources, they've got suggestions for young children, teaching young children, professional development, topics, blogs, and books. All right, our next resource is going to be PRISM. This is also from the National Center for Pyramid Model Implementation as well. This one, though, PRISM specifically looks at infant toddler social emotional development. So it does take those practices and it breaks them down into developmentally appropriate age groups and age milestone markers. So they've got resources here for teachers, administration, and coaches. All right, next one, conscious discipline. If you've been in the early childhood field for a while now, you've probably heard a lot about conscious discipline. Conscious discipline is a practice to make sure that we as teachers and educators and parents are being very mindful about the way in which we discipline and support young children. So this has a lot of great free resources for you guys. There's some e-learning and digital classes that are available. Some of them are free, some of them you do have to pay for, but great source of information here.
Yeah, that one was real nice. I just got done taking their 10 section. I really enjoyed that.
The trauma-informed care course?
No, the conscious discipline.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the e-learning digital class.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was real nice.
Good.
I thought it was gonna be kind of boring, but each one of her section was real good.
Yeah. Becky Bailey
Yes.
was the one who created this structure for early ed, and she's phenomenal. Hearing her talk,
Yeah,
she is great.
it wasn't nothing boring about her at all.
No, there's not. So conscious discipline, if you haven't heard of it, I would recommend looking into that. There's a lot of great information there. I'm also going to include this link in the list of links too.
After the shock
This is
of
their
another school
YouTube channel. So they've got different featured articles. Just really probably one of my favorites. All right, next one we're going through quickly here. 0 to 3 is a program that looks at early development for children ages birth to 3 years old. So we know that those first 3 years of a child's life is really critical in the way that their brains develop. So this organization specifically looks at what we can do to help make sure that we're supporting those first 3 years of life appropriately. So that's a next great resource for you. If you are also familiar with Teachstone, Teachstone is a resource, highly recommend it. If you don't have an account with us through Teachstone, you can always request one, and I'd be happy to set it up for you. It is free. They have a lot of resources that are available through Teachstone, like some, let me see if I can log in, like some videos that you can watch. These are exemplar videos, which means that they are high quality examples of specific interactions with young children. You can sort it by level over here. You can sort it by dimension in the class assessment tool. So if you get your class assessment and you find out, oh, I scored really low in X, Y, and Z section, you can come to Teachstone, watch some videos on it, and learn about what that might look like as a high quality interaction. Let's see. So the last one, there's a couple of other ones that are going to be on here for you guys in the follow-up email with the links for today, but this is the last one I did just want to briefly go over. This is the Center on Social Emotional Foundations for Early Learning. This was actually the original NCPMI program, but the website itself still has a lot of phenomenal resources on it. So we did include the link for this. For example, a ton of social stories here. If you're not familiar with social stories, they are a book that can be personalized for young children with whatever social or emotional barrier that they might be facing. For example, scripted stories for I go to preschool, I can be a super friend, I can use my words, I can stay safe. Tucker Turtle takes time to think and tuck. So that's going to be our last one. There's a book list here. There's book nooks, which are guides to use for specific books for teachers and caregivers in order to look at ways to embed those social and emotional practices within your classroom. So this is going to be the list that I sent for you guys. It lists what the resource is and kind of a brief description about it, as well as a link to that resource. And it is about 2 pages long. This is going to be a great starting point for you. Of course, we have plenty more here at the Early Learning Coalition. So if you look through those links and you're not finding something that you want, please feel free to reach out to us. We have a whole huge resource library that we have here that we can sort through and find supports for any kind of challenges you might be having in your classroom. Whether it's, how do I get this parent to potty train, or how do I get this child to stop biting? Those are some supports that we can provide for you. All right, any questions, thoughts, or concerns on that list of resources?
Yeah. Huh?
What you got, Miss Cindy?
I'm in an in service.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
You're unmuted. Yep. All right, I wasn't sure if she wanted to talk to us or not, but thank you, Miss Natasha, appreciate that. All right, so in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself, out of all those resources that we just shared with you today, what is one that you're going to look further into after today's session? Just choose one of the couple that we went through. What are you gonna look into further over this next week out of those resources that we just went through?
The last one you had with the books, so that
Okay.
you can personalize them, that would be really interesting for my 2- and 3-year-olds to read to them.
Absolutely. The social stories from Cephal are perfect.
Yep.
I just did the conscious development. I'm saying discipline. I'm gonna focus on that a little more.
Okay,
And also I want to do the A to Z.
perfect. A to Z is one of my favorites. Anybody else? I don't see anything in the chat box. All right, outside of those resources, is there any other kinds of resources that you feel you need at this time? All right, Miss Sharon's going to do conscious discipline. Miss Hannah's going to do A to Z. All right, so what I'll do is I'll go over these last few slides. We're going to wrap up early today. And let me actually take attendance before I forget while I'm thinking about it. Okay. We'll go through these last few slides, and if anybody has anything personal that they feel like they need outside of these resources that we went through today, I'd be happy to stay on for a few minutes and see what kind of supports I can provide for you. So you will receive a document with the links for all the resources that we went through today, as well as a couple of others we didn't go through. These are going to be some of the examples: the NCPMI, University of Florida, Teachstone, eClick, Prism, Conscious Discipline. And that's going to be it today, guys. Nice short session. So today we did wrap up with, we are wrapping up. We were able to learn what resources and materials are, what credible resources and materials are, and what makes them credible. So remember, those .gov, .edu, .org websites are what we want to aim towards. We want to try and stay away from mommy blogs, things like that. Wikipedia, those kinds of websites may not always have the most up-to-date, credible information. So when we are looking for information to share with our coworkers, our teachers, or even our families, try and aim for those .gov, .edu, and .org websites. Those are more regulated than the other ones. We were also able to learn the importance of resources and materials and the benefits that they have in the classroom when they're used as intended. We learned how to access resources and materials through certain websites such as NCPMI, PRISM, and Teachstone. And you guys identified something for yourself to look at over this next week in obtaining resources and materials for you to use in your classroom. So that is going to wrap up our session for today. Does anybody have any questions? All right, so I'm going to drop in the chat box the link for the evaluation for today. Just remember, please complete it. This is how you receive your certificate for your in-service hours. Remember to put in the email address that you want the certificate to be emailed to, and it will automatically, after you submit your evaluation, it'll automatically email you your certificate. Check your spam folder if your certificate doesn't show up in your inbox. Sometimes it likes to go on a little journey, go to your spam folder instead. If there are no further questions, I just want to wish you a wonderful rest of your day and look forward to seeing you guys in our next training on the 27th. We're going to be looking at addressing challenging behaviors with the prevent, teach, reinforce structure. So I hope you guys are able to make it to that one. It's going to be a wonderful session. I'll stay on for a few more minutes in case anybody has any personal questions or needs, but that's all I had for you guys for today. Thank you for your time. It was lovely to see everybody.